Hi, I'm Lynn Madera. Thank you for joining us for another episode of our Insights webinar series. Today we're going to cover the Prospect Center. So let me go ahead and share my screen and we will get started. First of all, we'll go over a functional overview of the Prospect Center. Then we'll go into some best practices, how to use some of these features to your advantage. Some of the advanced configuration topics there, which really have to do with customizing this area for your organization, as well as a new feature coming out inside of the Prospect Center. So let's look at a couple of slides so we can hit the high points on our functionality. And one of the things that we really want to highlight here is the benefit of a one-stop shop inside the Prospect Center. So everything is at the user's fingertips. So I can look at all of the history in a single view. I have access to all of the activity that I can perform or maintain. I have access to all the fields of information on that same page. And then I have the ability to look at all of the contacts, interact with those, and also manage the attachments. So it's really a streamlined, efficient interface for our users. So now we want to highlight the functionality just in this diagram before we dive right in. But really I want to show how the screen is broken up into three areas. The first panel being all of the activity that you can perform. You've got these active icons. Then at the bottom of that screen are all your fields of data that you might be filling in or trying to fill in about the prospect. The center area is targeted towards activity. So history, what's been done, what is planned, all of the notes that go with that. We also have a standalone deposits panel that is very custom to many of our customers. So whether you're tracking entrance fees, deposits, monthly service fees, we'll lay that out particularly for your organization. And then on the right-hand side, these are the things really linked to the prospect, right? Like all the contacts. You might have adult children listed here, maybe refers listed here, and then the attachments that you can then upload or manage inside the system. Now, inside the activity view, and I'm really just going to focus right now on the timeline view to give you this overview. This is a complete listing of all of the activity for the prospect. That includes everything that the sales counselor's done, as well as any emails that maybe have been sent out from your marketing team or events that have been scheduled and attended. All of that information will be in a single timeline for the users to view. Our planned activity is always at the top, right? So you don't lose track of that in the timelines, for example, if something goes overdue. So anything that you need to complete or execute will always be listed here at the top for you. And we have these quick filter bars. So if I just want to focus on appointments or tasks, I can do that. And then we've got the ability to search. So across this timeline or this collection of activity, you can search across the title and the notes for every description. So this is really a powerful tool for our users to research and work with the prospects inside the system. And then finally, the feature that we want to highlight before we just dive right into the page is how the activity or how the page behaves when you are entering activity. Okay, so in this example, we're adding an appointment to Sue's profile page, and you'll notice the add appointment screen comes up, but it's layered on top of her prospect page and it's active. So it is tied to her page. Everything you do is linked to her. And so you'll see what I mean when we get into the page. So it's really very efficient. And as soon as you finish your appointment entry here, the screen will close down and you'll be right back on Sue's page. So let me pull up Sue's profile live for us to walk through, and I'll show you how some of these screens interact. And then we'll go into our best practices, like really how to dig in and use this information. Okay, so let's look at the left-hand side first. So we've got Sue's profile page at the top, and we can change that out. We have our action bar, maybe you might refer to it as action bar. So it's everything I can do. For example, we just talked about adding an appointment. So if I need to add an appointment into my planned activity here, when I click add appointment, you'll see how this comes out. And this is tied to Sue's profile page, right? So as soon as I'm done adding that appointment, I save and it closes down. Next, we've got our list of fields that we're collecting about Sue as a prospect. And you'll be familiar with, personal information, for example. Maybe you're collecting what's important to live in a community. We can just expand these open and have access to all the fields of data right on the page. Now we're going to highlight the search feature later on in the session, but we've got some really nice quick ways to get to fields that you want to interact with. Also, you can change layouts, right? So if I want to change from my sales layout to my move-in coordinator layout, I can do that easily here. And you'll just see the panels change, the information changes that I'm interacting with, etc. And I can just go back and forth. Now, the activity area. So this is a very, again, powerful area where we pull together all of the activity for the users. You'll see it's grouped up by month. For example, I can see this event that Stacy and Jonathan, her children, were invited to. One responded, one did not. So I can get right to that event information from here. Then I can go and look at, for example, an email. So a follow-up email was sent out to Sue herself, and it was delivered, and it was opened 10 times. Okay, so all of the emails that go out of the system, whether the sales counselor does it or the marketing department does it, all of that information is available here. Now our quick filter bar, you'll see I can go across the top, and now I'm down to just the appointments. And I can see I've got one open or one that is coming up, and then I can see the appointments that I completed. Similarly for tasks, this is just a really quick, convenient way for you to get to all the information on the activity bar and get it focused. And then we have our deposits tab. So you can see this one is laid out in the idea of collecting an entrance fee as well as calculating monthly service fee. This is customized for your organization. So let's go back to the activity view here. I don't want to go too far in. Again, we're going to highlight some other features on this page, but there are, on the activity timeline, there are a couple other views. Okay, they're very powerful for our users. So you can go from a straight timeline view to a notes view that gives you a quick read on anything that had a note entered on it. To a workflow view, and we're going to cover the workflow view at the end of the session. That's also in this menu. And then on the right, you'll see I have all the contacts that are linked to Sue, our prospect. Here at the top, this blue icon highlights that Jonathan is currently our primary contact. I can see relationship and all contact information here. If I just want to change primary contact, I simply select that icon, and then Stacy would be primary. Then at the bottom, we have all of our attachments. I can add an attachment from here, download it, delete it. But again, everything related to Sue Crenshaw is all in this single page. So let's go back to our slide deck, and let's move into best practices. And our first best practice, okay, really has nothing to do necessarily with the Prospect Center. It really is about how you organize your day, and then how you're going to use the Prospect Center, how you're going to access it, right? So everyone's familiar with the red, yellow, green. Red being overdue because we want to be sure that those are highlighted, that they need to be addressed, either canceled or rescheduled. Yellow is everything due today. So if you're engaged into the system and you're really using it to plan your day and execute your day, we want to hit all our yellows, right, and get those knocked out. And then green just lets you look at the future. And a lot of us like to sit down, right, and look at the week upcoming. So what kind of appointments and tasks and who am I working with? So we really, managing your day is really important to the access and how you get into the prospect center. And so there are a number of ways that you can do that, from our dashboard area, from the prospect list page. And so let's just look at a couple of those, and then we'll move on to our next little best practice. So I'm going to actually close Sue down, and let's go into our demo page here. So first of all, red, yellow, green on the prospects tab, right? I can easily sort here. Sue is right at the top because she has an activity that's overdue, and I can quickly pop into Sue's prospect center. That overdue activity is right there on top for me to complete and record activity. Okay, and I can, review history if I need to. The other area that folks really use as a landing page, and it might be called your today page or your my activity page. It kind of depends on your configuration. But again, many times we have our tasks organized down the left. And so we have red, overdue, yellow today, and green in the future. And so again, Sue's right here at the top, and I can pop into her prospect center and execute, what I need to execute. So the organization that you implement, or the system that you use inside of Continuum, really is important, to how you access the center and use the functionality. And again, we can also use the calendar area. And of course, every time you look at a prospect, we're still promoting that red, yellow, green visual indication. Okay. So our next slide. Now we're going to focus on the notes view inside of the activity timeline area. And so I quickly went by that to point it out, but this is a great area for you to see the prospect's journey that they've had through the system, right? Or just to learn, kind of storyboard, see what that story is as someone, as you worked with the prospect, especially in the cases maybe where you're filling in for somebody who's out sick. This is a great view to just get a sense of that conversation or that interaction. And then we can also search and get down to the conversation, that we might have been interested in. So let's go look at that again on Sue's page. And I had been on Notes View before when we had last shut it down, so it remembered that I was on the Notes View. This is a great place. So I can read through, and again, it's chronologically, descending, but I can go back as far as I want and start to read and walk through these notes. Now, let's say I know I talked to Sue about the particular apartment that they were looking at, etc. I can do a quick search here for the word apartment, and I quickly get that filtered list of, okay, apartment 5B, that's right. And then, yeah, she did call last week about the refrigerator that they're going to be moving, that's available in the apartment or that they're moving into, right? So we can really look at, if I, anything, if I put in phone, these phone calls came up, right? Or I can look at, anything that's in the title or the text. So policy, there's where I talked about the pet policy. So, this, I think, will promote itself easily for best practice, but there are so many scenarios where this notes view will be helpful, and not just to a sales counselor who's worked with the same prospect over and over again, but like I said, with people filling in for one another, or if a manager needs to quickly get caught up kind of on a progression of topics, the notes view will be very powerful for that. Okay, let's look at our next best practice. And I kind of naturally have hit some of this during the conversation, but the searching is so powerful inside the platform. We just looked at searching in the notes view. that search carries over to the timeline view as well. But the other thing that we can do is we can search for the fields. So when we're looking at, Sue's layout here, I can go over to the search fields area, and let's say I want any of the fields that have residence in the name, and I can just type a little portion of it and they quickly show up. So in the personal info area, it was what's her current residence. Prospect readiness, how many resident connections does she have? And then we're just going down, so what's the unit number that she's interested in? So I don't have to expand the different field categorizations to see all those fields. Again, the example in our slide deck is waitlist. So quickly I get all the waitlist fields that I can interact with. And then when I close that down, it's done and all the fields are back available to me. The one thing I wanted to point out about the search notes here, the search bar, is that as I switch between the timeline view and etc., that clears up and I can research and kind of move on about my business. But this is really, if I search for home, so we had an appointment and a home visit, and then here, if we look there, this one found one for the title and one for the note, right? So again, the searching best practice will help you get to the information that you are most focused on or most needing at the time. Okay, the deposits panel. We're moving into advanced configuration areas. And again, the advanced configuration here is really focused on making this custom for your organization. Okay, and the deposit structure or the revenue structure is often different for our different organizations. You're collecting different deposits, tracking different amounts, and we'll manage all of this in the setup area. So again, if we look at Sue's deposit panel here, this is geared towards those entrance fees and the monthly service fee, but this could look very different. This will be your deposit structure, okay, when we go to configure this. Then we look at the contact panel. So one thing that we haven't highlighted in the Prospect Center yet is the interaction for adding a contact into the prospects area. And so it's a streamlined view, not the full-blown contact profile. It is focused on what is the most critical information for your capture of a contact. We can enforce required fields still, and this will be managed in the setup area. So you can have whatever you want captured, and you'll notice in our demo, we are showing on the viewing part, we're showing the Facebook link. Many of you may not care to have Facebook link, and that's fine, it's configurable. But when I go to add a new contact here, you'll see when I add it, that's not a critical piece when I add a contact. That can be edited and added at a later time if I want to. But I'm just focused on capturing, that relationship and then key contact information. And then finally, when we talk about the multiple layouts, so many of you may be used to leveraging multiple layouts for the profile page, and these still are promoted and managed in Continuum and available on the profile screen. We quickly looked at those from before. I'm currently on the sales layout, but I might move to the move coordinator, and now you'll see, I've got information about garage space and mailbox, etc. So again, all of this is still permission based, however it is you set up your permissions, and then it's also still managed inside of our setup area. Okay, then finally, the new feature, and I think this is one that will be very beneficial for the entire user base, is looking at that activity timeline area from a workflow standpoint. And we called this one the workflow view. And let me see if I can zoom in on this area. So what you'll see still, are open, our planned activities at the top, but throughout the list of activities, they're not just chronologically organized, they are organized by the step that and the process or the workflow. So here I can see I have 8 activities in inquiry, I have 3 in decision, and then down towards the bottom, you'll see that, and I'll zoom in again, I don't have any in deposit or move in. And so we're summarizing the number of activities in each step. And this is a helpful tool to gauge where you are in the workflow with each prospect, where maybe much of your time has been spent. You will be able to filter down. So if you don't want to see events and emails, then you can just look at appointments and tasks, those kind of entries. So this view will help really promote the idea of the prospect's journey and the work that you're doing to move them through your workflow or your sales process. Okay. So that was it for our overview of the Prospect Center. And now I will turn this over for Q&A, and we look forward to seeing you again in our next episode.